Pangolins are an unusual order of mammals known for their scaly appearance. Unfortunately, most species are threatened due to a variety of factors, the most devastating of which are deforestation and poaching. As usual, a document with the sources for the images used, along with research papers I found useful, will be included in the description of this video. Pangolins are in the order Pholidota. This means that they are in the superorder of mammals called Laurasiatheria. In fact, I have done at least one video on all other orders in this group, so I guess it is now the pangolins' turn. This superorder starts with Euler containing various insectivores like the hedgehogs, moles, and shrews. Next are the bats and Chiroptera. Known as the only true flying mammals, they are one of the most successful groups of mammals, being the second largest order. The pangolins are the next order. We will clearly be returning to them in a minute, as they are the focus of this video. The pangolins are most closely related to Carnivora, containing various carnivorous mammals like the cats, dogs, seals, bears, and hyenas. The last two orders in this clade are the hoofed mammals, in Artiodactyla and Perissodactyla. Artiodactyla is the much larger order of the two, containing the camels, pigs, sheep, antelopes, cattle, whales, and dolphins. Perissodactyla, on the other hand, includes the horses, rhinos, and tapirs. So, back to the pangolins. Pangolin is an odd word, but originates from the Malay word pengulang, which means something that rolls up, referring to the pangolin's defense strategy. They are sometimes also known as the scaly anteaters, which references their two most notable features. Starting with the scales, pangolins are covered in armor of overlapping scales. This is actually reminiscent of scale armor, a type of armor used by warriors as early as the 1400s BCE. Scale armor was even sometimes made directly from pangolin scales, so it is possible the animal was an inspiration for the creation of this armor. While the armor would later be made from various metals, pangolin scales are made from keratin. This is the same substance as your fingernails and hair, as well as rhinoceros horns and various other features of different animals. This armor does resemble that used by armadillos, and in fact it was believed that armadillos and pangolins were closely related due to their armor. However, this is an instance of convergent evolution, and the structural difference between the armor of pangolins and armadillos clearly show this. Pangolin scales, as I have already said, are made entirely from keratin. The armor seen on armadillos are not scales, they are osteoderms. Osteoderms are structures made from bony deposits, and in armadillos, these bony protrusions are then covered with a thin layer of keratin. With the tangent about armadillos over, let us return to the pangolins and the other half of their scaly anteater nickname. They have convergently evolved to have some similarities to other anteaters, like aardvarks and the South American anteaters. Their diet mainly consists of ants and termites, which they capture with their long, sticky tongue. Similar to giant anteaters, but unlike other animals, their tongue is not connected to their hyoid bone. Larger pangolins can extend this tongue by as much as 40 centimeters or 16 inches. Pangolins have no teeth, and also their foreclaws are strong and used to break into termite mounds, which is another way in which they convergently evolved to be similar to the South American anteaters. There are 8 or 9 species of pangolins alive today, but around a dozen extinct ones are also known. The earliest known pangolin is Aomanus, which lived in Europe about 50 million years ago. It was a similar size to modern-day pangolins, and shared many of their common characteristics, meaning that pangolins have changed little over that time. One major difference between Aomanus and modern pangolins, however, is that it did not have scales on its tail or legs. This suggests that the more complete armor seen in pangolins today did slowly evolve over time. Many extinct pangolins are known from Germany in particular. This includes Eurotamandua, which possibly gives the best indication of what the ancestors of the pangolins look like. When it was first found, it was thought to be a xenarthran, and so one of the South American anteaters. This was the assumption, as this species lacked the distinctive scales that pangolins are known for. However, no xenarthrans have ever been found outside of South America before 3 million years ago, and even then they only spread to North America. They have never been found in Europe or Asia. This brought into question the initial classification of Eurotamandua, and upon closer examination it was determined to be a primitive, scaleless pangolin. as it lacked distinctive skeletal features seen in all xenarthrans. Extinct pangolins were not restricted to Europe, however. A few did spread to Asia and even North America. Cryptomanus is known from Mongolia and China, and Patriomanus is known from Wyoming in the United States. Patriomanus is particularly interesting, as it had long fingers and a prehensile tail, suggesting that it was arboreal. It could also open its mouth wider than the modern pangolins, although its diet is still assumed to be mostly ants and termites. Patriomanus is the only species of pangolin known from the Americas, but its ancestors likely arrived over a land bridge from Europe. All modern pangolins are in the family Manidae, but this is divided into 3 different subfamilies, each with a single genus. The first and largest is the one I will be focusing on today. This is Manus with the 4 species of Asian pangolin. Next is Smootzia with the 2 species of ground pangolin. These are found in Africa and include the largest living pangolin. This is uncreatively called the giant ground pangolin and can get up to 40 kilograms or 88 pounds in weight and up to 180 centimeters or 71 inches long. The last genus is Phataginus with the tree pangolins. These are also found in Africa, but as their common name suggests, they are arboreal. Both species have long prehensile tails that they use to grip onto branches. The Asian pangolins in Manus are believed to have diverged from the African lineages about 41 million years ago. They do show some differences from tree and ground pangolins. Most notably, Asian pangolins have hair or bristles growing from between their scales, while African ones do not. Asian pangolins are arboreal, and so their adaptations tend to be more similar to the tree pangolins than to the ground ones, although they are not as closely related. Before starting to talk about the species themselves, there are 2 recurring issues with pangolins that I want to cover in more detail first. The first is the poaching and illegal trade of pangolins and their body parts. In fact, pangolins are the most illegally trafficked mammals in the world, even surpassing the harvesting of ivory from elephants. It is estimated that from 2000 to 2019, almost 900,000 pangolins were killed for their meat and scales, accounting for around 20% of all illegal wildlife trading. Their meat is considered a delicacy in many parts of China and Vietnam. In Vietnam, pangolin meat can cost as much as $150 per pound of meat, and often requires a deposit and several hours of notice if someone wishes to order it. It is available at certain restaurants despite being illegal, and the employees will often take the live animal to the table and kill it in front of their guests to prove its freshness and authenticity. Pangolin scales are widely used in traditional medicines, again especially in China and Vietnam. When dried and roasted, they are claimed to improve the quantity of milk in breastfeeding mothers, drain pus, relieve skin disease, cure palsy or anorexia, remove blood clots, or improve blood circulation. Pills containing powdered pangolin scales are also claimed to improve fertility in women. The use of pangolin scales is so widespread that they are even covered under some forms of health insurance in Vietnam. While pangolin meat and scales are the most common reasons for their illegal trade, they are sometimes trafficked for other uses as well. Pangolin wine, for example, is rice wine boiled with a baby pangolin. It is claimed to have healing properties, including improving breathing and treating skin diseases. Pangolin skins are also sometimes trafficked, with 2 tons of them being seized in Uganda in 2015. I have focused on the pangolin trafficking in Asia so far, and that is mostly because it is the Asian species that I'm covering in this video. However, the poaching is also an issue for the African species. Their meat and scales are still popular, but a wider range of other body parts are also used in Africa. In some traditional medicines, pangolin bones are used to cure stroke, back pain, rheumatism, headaches and asthma, among other things, while the head is used to cure dizziness, seizures, fever or gonorrhea. In Sierra Leone, pangolin oil is collected by smoking one over a fire, and this was used to cure rashes and various other diseases. Their body parts also play a part in spiritualism among some African cultures, and were believed to bring good luck and protection against spiritual forces or witchcraft. There are many other beliefs and superstitions that I have not covered here, but this should at least give you some idea of how many different uses pangolins and their body parts can have in different parts of the world. Largely due to this widespread use and trade of pangolins, all living pangolin species are considered endangered or critically endangered by the IUCN. All of them have been added to Appendix 1 of the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, more commonly known by its acronym of CITES. This is the international treaty that regulates the trade of animals and plants between different countries. Appendix 1 is the highest level of protection that CITES can provide, banning all commercial trade and only allowing non-commercial trade with very strict permits. The illegal trafficking of pangolins actually leads into the second topic I wanted to cover before getting into the different species. This is the speculation that they could have been a vector for the virus that leads to the coronavirus, and therefore causing the COVID-19 pandemic. Coronavirus is known in pangolins, and given the illegal pangolin trade, people are often in close contact with them, so early on it was theorized that this could cause transmission to occur from pangolins to humans, thereby starting the pandemic. Further research has proven that pangolins were not the cause of COVID-19 in humans. While both do have the coronavirus, the RNA of these two viruses are different enough that it is impossible for one to be transmitted to the other species. Bats are the other proposed candidate, and their coronavirus is much more similar to that found in humans, but research is still ongoing as to the exact cause of COVID-19. Researchers were concerned that news of pangolins being the cause of COVID-19 might cause mass exterminations of them, putting them further in danger of extinction. While this fear was unfounded, a similar scenario did occur when Asian palm civets were linked to a SARS outbreak in the early 2000s. Alright, so with those topics covered, let's turn to the species of Asian pangolin. First of these is the Chinese pangolin, Manis pentadactyla. Their head to body length is 40 to 58 centimeters or 16 to 23 inches, but this size doesn't account for their tail, which is over half of their body length. Their tail is not only long, but is also prehensile, able to grab and hold onto branches. Despite this adaptation, it is mostly terrestrial but can climb trees when needed. They live in a variety of habitats, from primary or secondary forests, to bamboo forests, to grasslands, to farmland. They are found in parts of China, Taiwan, Nepal, India, Bhutan, Bangladesh and Myanmar. Chinese pangolins have large, strong claws which they use to dig the burrows in which they sleep, and also to break into ant nests and termite mounds. They are nocturnal and can excavate up to 15 feeding burrows in a single night. They also have many resident burrows throughout their territory in which they shelter and sleep. Males can occupy around 80 different burrows, while females will have about half of this number. When inside one of their resident burrows, they will create a wall of earth to block the entrance, presumably to protect themselves from predators. Chinese pangolins only give birth to a single offspring at a time. Their gestation period is around 11 to 12 months. The pango pups remain in their burrow for the first month of their life. And yes, I googled it, a baby pangolin is apparently called a pango pup. Even when young, their claws are very sharp and they use these to cling to their mother's tail as she walks around. They will do this until they are old enough to walk by themselves. When born, the pango pup's scales are white and soft, but they harden after only a couple of days. They will nurse from their mother for the first 6 months, but will start foraging for themselves and begin exploring more independently from their mother from about 4 months old. Chinese pangolins are considered critically endangered by the IUCN. We have already discussed their biggest threat, the illegal trafficking of them for their scales and meat, but that is not their only threat. Deforestation, habitat loss and urbanization also impact them, but pesticides are actually an important factor for them, as they not only kill off their food source, but can cause secondary poisoning in the pangolins. Feral dogs and roadkill also take their toll on the pangolin population. Their highly specific diet makes it challenging to keep pangolins in captivity. Even today, with our advanced knowledge of the correct diet, captive pangolins tend to die within a few years. This does make their conservation especially challenging, and they are even harder to breed in captivity. However, a few zoos have had some success with this in recent years. The Sunda pangolin has had more successes with this, but there was a single Chinese pangolin born at the South Korea Normal University in 2011. I was unable to find records of more recent births, but at the time that birth was only the 5th successful captive birth of a Chinese pangolin. The Indian pangolin, Manis crassicordata, is also sometimes known as the thick-tailed pangolin. This is actually one of its main physical differences from the Chinese pangolin, as its tail is noticeably shorter and thicker. Indian pangolins are shy, solitary, nocturnal animals. They have a coat of scaly armour, the same as all the other pangolins, and will curl into a ball when threatened. As you might expect from the name, the Indian pangolin is found primarily in India, but can also be found in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal and Pakistan. It is adapted for drier areas, preferring barren hillsides, but can live in grasslands and secondary forests. They do well at high altitudes, up to 1,850 metres or 6,000 feet above sea level, but can still be found all the way down to sea level. Their main diet is ants and termites, but unlike some other pangolin species, they will supplement this with other insects like beetles and cockroaches. They will feed on all life stages of their prey, from eggs to larvae to adults, but do seem to prefer the eggs. Along with the insects, they also ingest plant material, clay and stones. While this could be accidental material eaten as they lick up insects, it is actually important for them as pangolins lack teeth. This material then accumulates in the stomach to help break down their food in conjunction with their strong stomach muscles, similar to the gizzard stones used by some birds. They have poor eyesight and so locate their prey by smell. The reproduction of Indian pangolins is poorly known. During the breeding season, males and females will sometimes share the same burrow and may be more active during the daytime. As with the Chinese pangolin, when the mother leaves the burrow, the young is carried clinging to her tail. When they are threatened, the female will protect its young by holding it against her belly and curling into a ball around it. Now, you may have noticed that earlier I said there were 8 or 9 species of pangolin. The reason for this uncertainty as to the exact number of species is the Asian mystery pangolin, Manis mysteria. This species was discovered in 2023 when researchers did genetic analyses on pangolin scales recovered when an illegal trading operation was seized. While an interesting hypothesis, their claims of a previously unknown pangolin species have been met with skepticism by the scientific community. This is mostly because the evidence for this new species is only a few scales. While the results of the genetic tests are interesting, without finding a wild example of this new species, it is impossible to know anything more about it. Was it overlooked because it looks so similar to known pangolins? Or is there a pangolin population on some remote island that was previously unknown to science? Very little about its appearance is known, although the researchers did find some small morphological differences in its scales compared to those of known pangolins. However, this is unreliable at best, given the very small sample size they were working with. They speculate it is likely from Southeast Asia, given that its genetics suggest its closest relatives are the remaining 2 pangolins, both of which are found on islands in Southeast Asia. However, they also suggest its range could overlap with the Chinese or Indian pangolins. So, in other words, they have no idea where it might live. India to China to the Philippines or Indonesia is a massive territory to look for a new species. Whether it exists or not, it is not likely to be commonly accepted by the scientific community unless more evidence is found, including a type specimen that can then be compared to the other living pangolins. The Philippine pangolin, Manis culeonensis, is also sometimes known as the Palawan pangolin or Belantong. While its name indicates that it is found in the Philippines, and this is technically correct, its actual range is far more restrictive than that. It is only found in the Palawan archipelago. It is believed to be a relict population of an ancestor that was much more common, but this population was isolated from the mainland when rising sea levels cut off a land bridge to Borneo about 400 to 600,000 years ago. This then let the Philippine pangolin evolve in isolation from the other pangolin species. Philippine pangolins have small triangular scales that look noticeably different to the other pangolins we have been looking at. These scales are shades of brown, yellow and olive, meaning that they are also different coloration to the Chinese or Indian pangolins. These colours give them decent camouflage at night time, especially as they spend most of their time in the trees. Their preferred environment is primary and secondary forest, although they will venture into the surrounding grasslands. Unlike the previous species, Palawan pangolins are largely arboreal, preferring to spend most of their time in the forest canopy. They will go to the ground to forage, but when it is time to rest they will return to the trees and sleep in tree hollows. When threatened, they will curl into a ball like the other pangolins, but will also excrete a foul-smelling odour. They often sleep curled up for extra protection as well. They are usually slow-moving, but can move quickly in short bursts when startled. While it walks on all four legs, it can stand upright on its back two legs using its tail for balance. It does this to get a better vantage point to scan for potential threats. Little is known about their reproduction, but it is thought to be similar to the other pangolins we've already discussed. One interesting fact is that female Philippine pangolins are known to adopt young that have lost their own mother. While they are threatened by the same things as other pangolins, especially illegal trafficking and deforestation, they are considered moderately common throughout their range. However, the IUCN still lists them as critically endangered, mostly due to their extremely small range compounding the dangers of overexploitation. The final of the Asian pangolins is the Sunda pangolin, Manis javanica. It is also known as the Malayan or Javan pangolin, and is found throughout much of Southeast Asia. It can be found in Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Borneo, Java, and Sumatra. Like the Philippine pangolin, it is largely arboreal, living in primary or secondary forests. It can also be found in scrublands and palm oil plantations. Sunda pangolins are critically endangered, facing the same dangers as the other pangolins, with poaching and deforestation being their primary threats. While closely related to the Philippine pangolin, the Sunda pangolin is larger, lighter in colour, and has shorter claws. Their tail is prehensile, allowing them to cling to branches. Like other pangolins, they have poor vision but a strong sense of smell. They use the smell to locate ant trails to find ant nests. Sunda pangolins are the focus of the first successful pangolin captive breeding program. As we discussed earlier with the Chinese pangolin, keeping pangolins in captivity is extremely difficult, with most dying after only a few months, and breeding them is even more difficult. Despite these challenges, researchers at the Guangxi Forest Research Institute managed to produce 30 successful offspring in the 4 years from 2016 to 2020. 25 of these offspring were conceived at the institute, while the remaining 5 were births from wild pregnant individuals that were rescued and brought to the facility. Some of these births were the product of captive bred individuals reaching maturity and then going on to produce their own offspring. This program does give hope that captive births and reintroductions to the wild may actually be possible, despite the major challenges faced by housing pangolins in captivity. The researchers involved in this program believe that infection is the main cause of pangolin deaths in captivity, and for their breeding program, they state that for even something as simple as the pangolin not accepting a meal, they will immediately disinfect the entire enclosure, just in case infection is the cause. Because of this breeding program, we do actually know quite a lot about the reproduction of Sunda pangolins. They become sexually mature at about 7 months old, and, in captivity, their mating is not tied to a particular season and they have no obvious sexual cycle. This is in contrast to the breeding seasons being reported in the wild for other pangolin species. So it is unknown if this is because the Sunda pangolins in this study are in captivity, or if it is a difference with the entire species. It is possible that Sunda pangolins ovulate due to copulation like the European rabbit, instead of this being tied to the seasons or other external factors. If her pango pup dies, then the female can get pregnant again quickly, in less than a month. Some individual males show a low willingness to mate, which may explain the lack of breeding results in other attempts. I hope you enjoyed this video. Pangolins are highly unique mammals that are directly targeted by humans and so are severely threatened. Despite being illegal, the harvesting of wild pangolins is unlikely to stop unless the demand for pangolin meat and products drops significantly in certain key markets. While many organisations are working towards this goal, it still has a long way to go. Thank you for listening, and feel free to suggest another group of animals you want to see me cover in the comments.